So you're considering getting the Sony a7 IV. It's newly released, you watched all the videos, but I'm gonna give you the 9 things that you need to know before you upgrade to this camera. And make sure you stick around to the end, as I'm gonna tell you who this camera's for. All right, jumping right into it, number 9. New photo, video, and S&Q switch. So the beauty of this is you can set up your photo and video settings separately. With a quick switch of the dial, you can go from video to photo without having to change any of your settings. This is really important when it comes to shutter speed. It's very important that you have the proper motion blur when shooting video. How do you do that? Well, it's the 180 rule. So when you're shooting in 24 frames per second, you want your shutter speed to be at 1/50th. And when you're in photo mode, you're gonna wanna change up your shutter speed to match the motion blur that you're looking to get. Are you looking to get a really sharp, clear, sticky image? Or are you looking to get a blurry image? Well, if you're at 1/50th, depending on the lens, that might not be quick enough to handle the photo that you're looking to take. But in video, 1/50th is where you want to be. Or if you're shooting 30 frames per second, you may want to be at 1/60th of a second. So with a quick flip of the switch, you can go from photo to video. So this means you don't have to fumble through the menus to get to maybe aperture priority or shutter priority, or even manual. You can keep your camera in manual the entire time and just switch from photo to video and keep all those settings. This also gives you 3 programmable buttons, and now using the 1, 2, or 3 programmable modes, you can set multiple frame rates, you could do different picture profiles, whatever you need to do. But the beauty is you don't have to use the programmable buttons to get the video settings separate from the photo setting. Makes it so much easier to be a hybrid shooter. The thing that I absolutely love about this is that it also allows you to do custom white balance. One of the things that's super frustrating, if you want to shoot video with your Sony camera, you're gonna have to do programmable buttons if you're gonna use the camera for still photos as well. The problem that I've always found is that you can't custom white balance in those programmable buttons. Now, with the ability to switch between photo and video with a flip of the switch, you're gonna be able to go from photo to video, and you can also do custom white balance without having to change into photo, do the custom white balance, and then ultimately remember that, put it back into your programmable mode, and then tinker with the white balance. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll link a video up in the cards above in which I describe how I use custom white balance to program my Sony cameras. Also, the beauty of this is you get separate function menus for both photo and video, so you can just separate things. And I have this on my Sony a7C. I absolutely love it, so I'm glad that this feature is trickled down to the Sony a7 IV, or trickled up. Maybe it trickled up, I don't know. You tell me, trickle up or trickle down. Now, number 8 is you have a 4K image downsampled from a 7K video resolution. Now, this is a huge upgrade if you're coming from the Sony a7 III, the Sony a7C, or any of the Sony a6000 series. Originally, with most of these cameras, it was a downsample from 6K. Now we have a downsample from 7K to make that video look even sharper, a little bit crisper. Ooh. It's gonna look so nice. And the sample videos that I've seen look great. Now there is one caveat, the 4K 60, and this is number 7. The 4K 60 does have to be shot in APS-C or Super 35 mode. So basically what does that mean? Is that the sensor is gonna crop in 1.5 times on your video. Is that an ultimate problem? I don't know if it is. A lot of people are dogging on this, and I don't know if that's the right way to go. You may be upgrading from an a6000 series and you have a ton of APS-C glass. Now, if you're shooting in 60 frames per second, maybe you're using it for a little bit of slow motion to maybe do product B-roll. I can tell you that the 4K 60 at Super 35 is not gonna be as bad as it thinks. I still have the Sigma 16mm f1.4, and I absolutely love that lens. Most people, when they get those a6000 series cameras, they have that 16mm lens, and I think that lens produces a great, fantastic image. It's equivalent to 24mm. So if you have that lens, you are pretty much all set. That lens is going to function beautifully on the 4K 60. The downside is that it is the only mode that you will need to do Super 35 mode. If you can get by it, then you're gonna be fine, because it still downsamples from a 4.6K image. Your 4K 60p is gonna be downsampled from 4.6K, so it's still gonna look beautiful, it's gonna look sharp, it's gonna look crisp, because you're gonna get that 4.6K downsampled to that 4K, so you're gonna get a beautiful image. Now, the EVF on this thing is definitely improved. Is it gonna be Sony a7S III level. No, it's not going to be that 9 million dot, but it is going to give you a nice 3 million dot resolution. And the screen is upgraded on the back of the camera to a little bit over 1 million dots. I think it's 1.03. I really wish Sony would have used that LCD screen that they released on the A7R4A. That would have been great because when you're shooting video, most of the time you're using the back of the screen. Unfortunately, they didn't give it to us. Now that leads me to another change that they have, which is the exposure compensation dial. I don't know about you, I've tried to use that in video. It's never really worked out great. So here Sony's given us a blank canvas to do whatever we want with that dial. So you could set that dial to white balance, you could change picture profiles, you could basically map that dial to do whatever you need it to do. And it also has a locking feature, so this way you don't accidentally change that setting. But I absolutely love it. I think it's a great feature because, to be completely honest with you, doing that EV comp and trying to adjust on the fly, I've never been able to make it work right. Now we have a brand new 33 megapixel sensor. This thing is brand new. It's beautiful. It's kind of really a great sweet spot. It's going to be better than your 24 megapixel sensor, but it's not going to require as much file size as that 50 megapixel sensor. But you will get more detailed images because you're going to be shooting with 33 megapixels. You're going to have more detail to crop in if you need to in post. That's one of the big downsides of the Sony a7S III is that it's only 12 megapixels. If you don't have your composition just right and you don't have the right lens on the camera, your image is not gonna come out the way you want. Now with a 33 megapixel sensor, you can essentially zoom in to 200 or 300% and you're gonna get a very equivalent image. 12 megapixels is great for social media and it's all you need, but having a 33 megapixel sensor definitely gives you a lot more flexibility in post for stills. Now with this 33 megapixel sensor does come a better crop mode. Now the crop mode on this camera is going to be 15 megapixels. So that's great. Like I just said, the 12 megapixel sensor on the Sony a7S III can still produce great images. Now with APS-C mode, you're going to be able to get a 15 megapixel image. So you're still going to get a great image. So again, do you need to really upgrade that APS-C glass? We'll talk more about that later in the video. But with this, you can still get a great image, extend the reach of your lenses by cropping into that 15 megapixel sensor. So again, you really don't have to upgrade that APS-C glass so fast. You just gotta make sure you do your composition right when you're shooting your stills. This camera is going to work great in Super 35 mode for video, so there's really no need to run out and upgrade all your lenses and really break the bank and get some lenses that you absolutely don't need. You can upgrade slowly over time. So if you're coming from the A6000 series, you can drop the money on the camera and work your way up to building up to those better lenses, those better full frame lenses. Again, just be mindful of the lenses that you're using. Being a 15 megapixel sensor, when it's in APS-C mode or crop mode, you are going to have to pick the right lens for the job. 12 to 15 megapixels is definitely plenty enough for social media with all that compression that they put on your photos. Now, the downside with this shutter is it's not a stack sensor. So unfortunately, you're going to get that same rolling shutter effect that you've gotten with the Sony a7 III, a7C, and also the a6000 series. It's really a shame. I really wish they would have done stack sensor, but I do get that this would have upped the price of the camera. Or even if they would have done a global shutter, which would have been amazing, but again, would have really upped the price of this camera. So I fully understand why they didn't do it. For stabilization, you do have active mode, but this camera also comes with gyro stabilization. So this camera is going to do good for stabilization, but that gyro stabilization really smooths out your footage. It's even smoother than the active stabilization. The downside is you are going to have to keep your shutter speed a little bit faster. So for 24 frames a second, normally you want to keep your shutter speed at 1/50. If you are trying to use the gyro stabilization, I do recommend increasing your shutter speed. For some reason, the motion blur looks a little weird if you keep it at 1/50 for a 24 frame stabilization. So I recommend going to like 1/80th. 1/80th seems to be a nice sweet spot and it will help smooth out that image. It does crop in on your image a little bit, but I'll tell you this, it really does smooth it out. Now, before I get into my favorite feature of this camera, I'd like to welcome you to the channel. My name is Brian, the Camera Guy. If you're new to my channel, I review Sony cameras and lenses. If that's something you're into, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe button, and ring that bell notification so you don't miss out on my future videos. Finally, leave me a comment down below. Let me know, are you looking to pick up the Sony a7 IV? Now, number 3, my favorite feature in this camera. Why number 3 if it's my favorite? Well, I got two other features that are really important that I didn't think were gonna actually happen with this camera. This is by far my favorite feature, 10-bit 422 video. This is what I wanted. I'm sick of 8-bit. 8-bit is okay, but 10-bit is now the standard. It's gotta be 10-bit, and they delivered with this camera. I am so pumped that we are getting 10-bit 422 color coming out of this camera. I expected it after seeing the Sony a7S III, and Sony has definitely delivered. There are the 2 new codecs, the XAVC-S, which is gonna be 200 megabits per second. If you're gonna be recording an XAVC All Intra, that's gonna be running you 600 megabits per second. So get ready to store up the hard drives because you're gonna need it if you're running All Intra on this camera. The beauty of the 10-bit color is the color itself. You are gonna get a full range of color. This is going to be way better than your 8-bit color. Trust me, when you're shooting S-Log2 and S-Log3, if you don't nail it just right, your image is gonna break down. Your image is just not gonna look as good. With the 10-bit color, you do get a lot more room, a lot more color, a lot more range if things are screwed up. So that means that it's gonna break down less in the color grading process. Amazing. It's one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy is that your colors, your image can break down if it's just not perfect straight out of camera. This also means S-Log3 is on the table, which is fantastic. Currently shooting S-Log2, and I think it does a good job in 8-bit, but S-Log3, ooh, those colors look really nice in S-Log3. You get the full 15 stops of dynamic range when using S-Log3, and that is where the magic happened. This alone is the reason why I'm upgrading. I think the image quality coming out of it is gonna be fantastic and much easier to work with my editing softwares. Now, number 2, the thing that I did not think they would give us in the Sony a7 IV is S-Cinetone. This is the picture profile that they reserve for their cinema line, and it is trickling down to the Sony a7 IV. Did not think that this was coming. If you watched my prediction video, did not think this was gonna happen. I was completely wrong, blindsided by this. Cannot believe that this is coming. I am super pumped for the S-Cinetone. The beauty of the S-Cinetone is you can do minimal color grading. You get great looking color coming straight out of this camera. You do lose a little bit of dynamic range, but your color grading process is so much easier because maybe you just got to tweak just a little bit and you get beautiful colors coming straight out of this camera. And finally, the number 1 reason why you may want to upgrade to the Sony a7 IV, the fully articulating screen. At this point, every camera has to have it, in my opinion. It is the reason to upgrade if you are using the Sony a7 III. I mean, we've gone through 8 other things, but this one to me is the thing for video shooters that makes it so much easier. Do I want to videotape myself? You're right, I'm a solo content creator, so I need to be able to see myself when I'm shooting my videos. If I can't do that and I gotta worry about like mirror hacks and doing crazy things, it makes it more difficult. This is a welcomed upgrade to the Sony basic lineup because that's what the Sony a7 IV is, right? It's the basic model. This is also the reason why I left the APS-C system, and the Sony a7C delivered on that. But with the 10-bit color that's coming in the a7 IV, it gives me another reason to upgrade from the Sony a7C. I love the compact nature of the Sony a7C, the fully articulating screen, plus the 10-bit color, no brainer. Time to do it. I was really hoping to go with the Sony a7 III. Originally, it was just a little too pricey. Now with the Sony a7 IV, yeah, the price is up a little bit, but you're getting a lot more features packed in that camera. It's gonna be so much easier to get a great image out of that camera. And why do you wanna buy a tool that's gonna make your life harder? Buy a tool that makes your life easier, right? That is what the Sony a7 IV is gonna do. Now, before we get into who I think this camera is for, I do wanna mention that there are affiliate links down below. Feel free to use those affiliate links. They cost you absolutely nothing extra to use, but they do provide me with a small commission, which helps support my channel and allows me to continue to make great videos just like this one. Now, who's this camera for? Real simple. There are a couple people that I think this camera is dynamite for. One, wedding videographers and photographers. If you're shooting both stills and video, or you're working some sort of hybrid here, this is the camera that you're gonna wanna get. The Sony a7S III is the king of video for sure, and the Sony a7R IV is the king of stills. This is them having a baby and spitting out the Sony a7 IV. This is the camera that you want to get if you need to do both stills and video. If you're a content creator like myself, a solo content creator, this is a camera that you've been waiting for. This is going to give you great image, 10-bit color, fully articulating screen, all those other things that I mentioned, and it is going to make your life so much easier to shoot video. I think the 3 years is well worth the wait. I also think that if you were waiting to go full frame, this is the camera for you. That EVF is going to be a little bit bigger than your current EVF on your APS-C model. If you have the Sony a7C, it's definitely going to be bigger. That EVF is going to be about 20% bigger and it's going to have better resolution. And I couldn't tell you how happy I am to hear these specs. A lot of people were dogging on it, saying that it wasn't anything revolutionary or anything great. Not every camera has to be revolutionary. Sometimes it just has to upgrade and eliminate the problems that the previous cameras, the previous predecessors had. That to me is the reason to upgrade. You buy this camera, you're good for 2, 3, maybe 4 years without having to worry about upgrading. That Sony a7 III, still a great camera. If you haven't gone full frame or you're looking for a better image, this is the camera to go with. If you like this video, I'm sure you're gonna like the video on the screen right now. It's about another camera in the Sony ecosystem. And before you leave, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thanks for watching. Brian out.